So I am going to get us started. Welcome, everyone. I'm Megan Marrero. I'm at Mercy University in New York, and I am also the coordinator of the USA Blue Schools, and we are supported by the National Marine Educators Association. So just real quick, for those of you who aren't Blue Schools yet, I'll say, if you want to join us, we are all about promoting ocean literacy within the curriculum and getting students involved in stewardship projects as well and getting them out in the community, learning more about their waterways, doing things like beach cleanups and water quality testing and things like that. I'm going to share the registration form in the chat in a few minutes, and that way, if you are interested, you can join our lists and learn a little bit more about us. And we are co-hosting today with NAMEPA. And so I'd love it if Molly, would you mind doing a quick introduction?
Yes.
Thank
Hi,
you.
everybody. My name is Molly Duche. I am the executive director at NAMEPA. We are a maritime-led organization, and our mission is to save our seas. And we do that in a few different ways. So we partner with the maritime industry to help them mitigate their impact on the marine environment, which we all depend on for all of the things we own, from your clothes to your toys, your bikes, your shoes. We rely on trade and transportation and how we can do that in a safe and efficient way while also protecting the marine environment. So, thank you guys so much for being here today. And I know that our speakers are very excited to share a little bit about what they do and how they came to be in these roles. So, thank you. And thanks for the USA Blue Schools for having us as well.
Yeah, thanks so much. This is great. What a good collaboration. So we are going to have a little presentation from each of our speakers and then have some time a little later for questions. But you can also put questions in the chat and we'll try to get those answered for you as well. So first, I'm going to introduce Mike O'Connor. Mike is the executive director of the Connecticut Port Authority. I am pulling up his slides. So Mike, I'm going to let you tell more about your experiences because I know they are varied and I know you have some really interesting stuff to share. So I'm excited.
Uh, Thank you, Megan. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Michael Connor, the Executive Director for the Connecticut Port Authority. You can go to the next slide because I'm going to continue to talk about maritime careers throughout. But the Connecticut Port Authority is a quasi-public organization in the state of Connecticut that is responsible to grow the maritime economy, and that is anything that touches water, we get involved with. But ultimately, we provide guidance, resources, and advocacy for things that further maritime trades, the environment, our shipping ports, port operations. Education is a big part of that as well, because if the next generation doesn't get to do what we've been doing, then at some point you can't do what we do. And Molly, I'm surprised that you didn't say if there's no shipping, there's no shopping. So next slide. Um, the I'm actually on my third career, and I just wanted everybody to know that you can start somewhere and you can explore many different things over your lifetime. But my first career was in the United States Naval Submarine Service. I was stationed in Groton, Connecticut, and I was on submarines, supporting submarines for 10 years. And when I exited the military with my Navy nuclear training, I went into commercial nuclear power generation. And that's bullet number two up there, which is service to an industry. And really, you have to know who you're serving and what your customers are and how you fit into the role that you play so that you can be successful and you can make everybody around you successful. But to run a 2,000 megawatt nuclear power generation station in Connecticut takes a lot of work by the people that are there. Everybody has their normal jobs, their outage jobs when we do refueling on the plants, and they have a role for emergency response should something need attention from the staff. Then everybody knows what to do and where to go. And then I had a great 32-year career in commercial nuclear power generation. And when I retired at the end of 2024, the Port Authority was looking for a leader. And Uh, I stepped into that role and I've been doing it for about 14 months now. I learn something new every day. I meet new people every day, and I put a lot of people together to further the work that they want to do in the state of Connecticut and in collaboration with the states around us and the world too. Next slide. Since you're all in the education stream and you're learning what to do, I really wanted to suggest to you that the possibilities are endless. You have anything that you can think of to do on land. I can tell you what you can do in a maritime trade for that. Whether it's uh, culinary expertise, if you like to prepare food, there's a need for that at sea. If you like to grow food, you can do that at sea too for the crew so that they can have fresh food and vegetables. Um, Accountants, for everybody who likes numbers, that's great. But there's a myriad of positions that support the shipping industry with financial information and logistics and predictability. And all of the trades for shipbuilding, ship maintenance, port operation, port building, you name it, it can be done at sea. So I've been to a number of high school career fairs lately, and everybody that wants to be a carpenter, um, there's a need for that at sea or on a port. Plumbers, pipe fitters, electricians, all has applications to the maritime industry. And so if you already like being near the water and doing things, why give that up to go work inland when you can kind of marry that love with something that you can do for a career? Next slide. To be successful, all you need to do is get involved. The people that get involved are asked to go do more things, and when you get asked, you should try those new things because really, in my experience, we've never tried to put somebody in a position to fail. We've always saw talent in people and tried to put them in positions where we thought they would succeed, and then you want to work for a supportive team that will give you the things necessary for you to succeed. And remember that in any environment, I don't care if you graduate from high school, college, or trade school, the learning doesn't stop. And every time you're out there doing your work, you have an opportunity to teach others what you know. Next slide. Just some local pictures from the on the left-hand side of the screen is a ship assisted by tugs coming up the Thames River in Connecticut. On the right side is the New London State Pier, which we configured to handle large, heavy offshore wind turbine components, as you can see on the screen. And on the next page, when I was at an American Association of Port Authorities conference in Quebec City, that was a ship coming down the St. Lawrence Seaway. So um, worldwide interconnections, connections between trucks and the sea, trains and the sea. It's all used to move all your freight all over the place all the time. And there's just so many huge opportunities. That's all I had. Look forward to your questions.
Thank you so much. Why don't we do like one or two questions in between, if that's okay, just since it's fresh. Any of our students and our teachers have questions, I think we'd love to hear from you guys first. If you wanted to like bring someone up to the mic, you can, or you can put it in the chat. And we have a lot of, I know we have a lot of students in Connecticut,
Great.
which is Mike's stomping ground. So maybe you have more specific questions. And now I feel like I'm putting them on the spot.
Well, you know what's easy about being in Connecticut is if there's a student group that wants my staff from the Port Authority or me to come by their school and interact with them, we can do that. But through the miracle of Zoom, we can connect with you anytime you want, right into your classroom on a case by case basis to be more specific and talk about the things that you're interested in.
Very cool. Thank you for that. All right. Well, I'm not seeing any brave souls just yet, but maybe you
Okay.
guys can marinate and think about what questions you might have. And we're going to move on to our next speaker. So let's see. We have Nate.
And Megan, it
And
looks
we have
like you have a question that
Oh,
came
we
in
do have a
the chat.
question. Look
Yep.
at that. Um, as far as railroad to ship interactions in ports, what sort of careers do you see in this day and age?
Oh, I see with the increased use of our highways, all of our highways are getting maxed out for truck capacity. The federal government's actually set up what we call marine highways, and they mirror the major highways. Like there's a M95 along the east coast of the United States that kind of follows the path of I-95, the roadway. But when you can move things from port to port by ship and then kind of do the last mile by truck, it relieves some of the congestion that you see. For those that live in New York, Connecticut, New Jersey area, there are just lines of trucks leaving the port of New York, New Jersey, going to everywhere. And when we can get that freight on rail, or we can do coastal shipping to get cargo out of big ports into little ports in different spots and alleviate the roads. Every truck we can get off the highway onto the sea helps the trucks that can't get off the highway with more space, less traffic, and the cost to do shipping by sea or rail is orders of magnitudes less than shipping by truck, and it's better for the environment.
Great question, and thank you. All right, well, we're going to move on to Nate, who I love that we're going to start and hear what Nate was like as a baby. And he is from MMCs, but I'm going to let you tell us more about them.
Awesome. Thank you, Megan. So I have the most traditional and least traditional pathway to join the blue economy, and kind of my role is not the normal place that you would start. But my adventures on boats start before I could walk. So this is me as a baby in a 5-gallon bucket on the back of our boat, because that's where my parents put me whenever we go out on our boats when I was a kid, just to make sure that I could stay in one spot as the boat rocked back and forth. So we can jump to the next slide. And that being able to be there in any capacity allowed me to become a professional mariner. So I've sailed boats all around the world. I've worked on lots of different types of ships. Jump to the next one. And so for me, these are some of the boats that I've gotten to play on. So I really lucked out. I got to go work on some different tour boats that are small little boats that you can go walk onto and get a job on pretty quick. I got to sail that boat on the far right, halfway around the world, where we didn't use any electronics. We just used a sextant and did all the math, and then dragged something in the water to calculate how far we've gone every day. And we found Bermuda, which is a pretty wild thing to leave Florida, sail all the way around, go through the Caribbean, and find an island in the middle of the ocean without electronics was pretty incredible for us. And then I've gotten to run a couple other sailboats up and down on both the West Coast and the East Coast. But there's this continual theme that I always like to push out into the world is every one of those jobs and every boat I got on was because I asked. There was no personal connections. There was no extra stuff. It was as simple as seeing a boat that looked interesting and walking down the pier and saying, "Hey, do you guys take volunteers?" And then, start learning a little bit about on the boat. Or Argosy Cruises, going up to folks and being like, "How did you get a job there?" And they go, "Oh, go talk to the hiring manager, X, Y, or Z." But a continual theme in the maritime industry that no one tells you is you just have to ask and be ready to work. And anyone can get a job in the maritime industry. It's the only thing left in the United States that you can just have a high school diploma. You can even have had some incidents that happen in your life that you didn't want to have happen, and you can still become the captain of any ship in the world or the chief engineer on any ship in the world and make $300,000 to $400,000 a year with never going to college. You can still go to college. It helps makes things easier, but there's pathways everywhere, and all of that starts with just asking. Like you gotta take that step. You gotta walk down the pier, and it opens up amazing things where I've gotten to do really great stuff. But it all comes from actually just asking. So let's go ahead and jump to the next one. After you guys are getting all the fun parts. Perfect.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. So after I worked on small boats, I really want to become what's called a NOAA Commissioned Corps officer. So there's 321 active duty service members in the United States It's the most exclusive, super nerdy thing you can do. Most of us have at least a master's degree, if not a PhD, and you go through all this work. You end up getting through. It took me 5 years and 6 application cycles to finally get accepted into this program and get my commission. But it meant I got to do the coolest boat stuff you can imagine in the world. So I got to drive the boat on the left. I spent 2.5 years in the Arctic and the Bering Sea, doing everything from chasing seals up in the ice and breaking ice, and randomly getting pulled down to go in the Caribbean in that same boat, or the South Pacific to go do other work, where wherever the United States needs us to go do fun, nerdy science stuff, we get to do it. But we also get to drive boats at the same time. So it's a pretty fun side. And then the boat on the right. We use that for what's called hydrographic survey. So the boats on the right, every time you see a chart, the boats are made of metal, and we really don't like to touch the bottom for all boats in the United States. And so the boat on the right is a boat that a big fleet of ships drive around all across the bottom. We use sound to hit the bottom of the ocean, and we pull that sound back up. And that sound wave, the time it takes, tells us how deep the water is. And then we're able to make the chart so that we can tell every ship, hey, there's a rock here, turn around the rock and don't hit the rock. Or this is how you're going to pull into the harbor, X, Y, or Z. And so I spent a year and a half on that boat on the right, driving that boat around up and down the whole East Coast. But our side job was to make sure that every time a hurricane came in, we were the closest to that hurricane. So we'd pull the boat directly into wherever the eye of the hurricane was coming as close as we could safely. We'd chain that boat to the pier, and we'd either stay on the pier, stay on the boat, or we'd go stay in a hotel room until the hurricane had passed. And then we were the first vessel out. So that boat, we have small boats that go off the sides, and they go in front of us and tell us what the bottom is so we can safely go to move stuff out of the way. And then we open up that port to make sure that the Coast Guard can put the buoys out that then allow the big ships to come in and start bringing fuel and food and all that stuff you hear about the hurricane recovery. This is the very first thing that happens every single time. So I had the pleasure of chasing hurricanes for a year and a half on a ship, which was pretty exciting. But again, it just comes from asking. Like, none of this would have happened if I hadn't put my effort out there to just figure it out, do the next steps, and go forward. So all of these things are amazing. All of these opportunities are here in the maritime industry. But the number one thing you have to do is ask. Go and jump to the next slide. The one hurdle that is really frustrating is paperwork. So as you're asking for all these things, to go from the lowest level job you can have on boats, which you don't even need a Coast Guard credential for, all the way up to I can drive any ship in the world now. And it took me about 10 years of doing all the paperwork correctly. So this is my actual pile of paperwork. It is that high. It's a frustrating mess. And so me and my friends decided to figure out how to make that pile of paperwork. We can jump to the next one. Turn into basically pseudo coded all the different 2000 licenses. So we thought about what is each way that you get one of these licenses to drive all these different types of boats. And then we turn that into computer code. So you can see there's us writing computer code up on the top right. So that's what it looks like to actually write code. And then turn it into a piece of software that's now used by about 25,000 people a day right now in the United States. It's the largest piece. It's kind of the way that you do this now. That's what it looks like in the actual right-hand corner, but it's done by code that's really just a bunch of manual processes to make paperwork as easy as possible. So not only do you have to ask, but you got to follow the instructions. And our goal is to make sure that all you have to focus on is sticking your neck out there. And our company and our team could help figure out how to make sure that the paperwork isn't the thing that's going to hold you back from progressing in your career. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions, or I can talk about boats. I can talk about running a tech company. I can talk about cleaning toilets and scrubbing decks in the middle of the ocean and everything in between. But yeah,
Love that. Thank you so much. And
of
I
course.
could use you to take paperwork away in my industry as well. One question we have is, what is the name of the NOAA career that you have? And also what's the name of your software?
Yeah, for sure. So it's called the NOAA Commission Corps, is the name of the small branch. It's often referred to as NOAA Corps, which is NOAA, NOAA, CORPS. And then the software is called MMCs. It's technically called Merchant Mariner Secure Electronic Application Software. but everyone calls it MMCs, and it's a play on words because the book that we all carry, that's our Coast Guard license, is actually called a MMC, which is a Merchant Mariner credentialing or credential. So the MMCs is a fun name on that. Yeah.
Thank you. And how often are the depth sounds updated?
Yeah, so it's a really fun, tough question. So I have sailed in Alaska, where the depth sounding we had was from like Captain Cook, right? And you're driving around and you're like, I'm not sure. Because before we had software and electronics, they would just take a piece of rope and they would put a weight on it and they would put wax on the bottom of that piece of rope and they drop it down as far as they could all the way down and then wait until it hit the bottom and go slack and then pull it all the way up and they'd measure how far that was. And then they would look at the wax on the bottom to say, oh, that's gravel. Oh, that's sandy bottom. Oh, that's shells on the bottom. Whereas now we use that acoustic level that we know that sand has a certain frequency and shells have a certain frequency and bedrock has a certain frequency to know. But that's how those kind of get updated all the time. Uh, the real non-technical answer is the more people that drive in an area, the more often those charts get updated. So middle of Alaska, nobody really cares if there was theoretically a rock at 200 feet below the surface. Whereas if we're driving around Florida and the sandbars are shifting pretty often, they're going to be updating those a lot more frequently to make sure that, boaters are able to stay safe and all the goods that we depend on. So the oil and gas that we need to keep, Florida stocked is always available, or, down in the Houston Ship Canal, that shifts pretty often. So there's people working down there all the time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One more, and then we'll switch over to our next speaker. How many months out of the year are you at sea?
So on one of my ships, we would be deployed for about 11 months at a time. It was a very high tempo, very important boat that I was on. That was the one in the Arctic, because we work with near Russia, doing stuff around Russia. We work up in the Arctic, which is a very intensely debated place at the moment. Um, but we'd only go out for about 40 days at a time. So the the problem with boats is that they run out of food and they run out of fuel. The boats can stay out for a very long time. People theoretically can stay out for a long time, but you always got to go home and refill the food and the fuel. And the scientists that would come with us would switch. So the crew would stay and the scientists would fly home on those anywhere from 30 to 45-day legs that we'd go out on um, at a time. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much. We're gonna switch over now to Philip. And Philip Grant is now in a consulting role. He's going to tell us about some of his other roles and work that he's done in waterfront. But Philip, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Megan. Well, everybody, happy Friday, right? Yeah. Thanks for
Yeah.
joining us. I hear some folks are from New York. We got Connecticut. I'm joining you live from New York, down in the Bronx today. Thank you again, Megan, and thank you, panelists, for being here today. I have, as Nate's, I have a similar background to Nate. I have a pretty traditional, and then I would say non-traditional path to the waterways. So I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New York. And I started my career as a mechanical engineer, working for an aquatic company, doing water filtration systems, railings, and those type of things. My first part of my career. Then I switched over at some point into construction management, starting as a project engineer, working my way up to an executive. And at some point in my career, I made it from the private side into the public side. I started working at the MTA down here in New York City, and as a construction manager, managing renovations on upland structures, as Michael said before. If you could make it on land, you could make it some way to the water. And at some point, I made it over to the New York City Economic Development Corporation as their SVP and Director of Construction. And a part of my portfolio, among the 113 things I had to manage and lead, was the waterfront, the 520-mile waterfront properties that the city owns. Next slide. So I have a question here. I said, what is waterfront infrastructure? So, waterfront infrastructure represents a highly dynamic and strategically significant segment of the built environment. As we said earlier, anything you could do upland, you could do underwater. And I didn't know about this. I think I learned this 15 years ago when I got to about 10 or 11 years ago when I got to the EDC, that there was so much work going on the waterfront. Up the picture on the right side is actually the Manhattan Cruise Terminal, and you'll learn a little bit more about it later on. That terminal was built in the 1930s. It sees upwards of I think 200 ships a year, and part of my portfolio as at the NYC EDC was to do the annual or the biannual dredging at the cruise terminal. So that cruise terminal had several slips, but during the year, due to the motion of the Hudson River, it normally gets silted in. So in order for us to maintain or to keep cruise ships coming in, we had to dredge. And how do we do the dredging? Number one, we can't just go out there and just start digging. We have to get all the permits in the world. Part of it is with the Army Corps of Engineers, the DEP, and so forth. And we would go out and dredge every year. The waterfront you're seeing on the bottom of your screen, that's actually the Yonkers waterfront. I lived in Yonkers for quite some time, and there was far down the pier there. There's a ferry landing, which we'll talk about ferry landings later on. So part of waterfront infrastructure, you have ports, you have terminals, you have maritime services such as fueling or ferry home port, which we'll talk a little bit about, and then we have logistics that happen along the waterways. As Michael said, if there were no ships, no shopping, right? In my case, if you if you don't have any ferries, we can't get people to their jobs. Next slide, Megan. One of my most notable projects in my portfolio was the New York City ferries. We launched it in 2017. Myself and my team, we built the initial first 12 landings in a 1 year span. And typical how it works with the city, the New York City Economic Development Corporation is the economic arm of the mayor. This project started with Mayor Bloomberg, and when I picked it up, I was under the Mayor de Blasio's administration, and we took it ahead. We had a fixed budget. At the time, it was $55 million. We had to build 12 landings. We had to get it permitted through Army Corps and all the necessary agencies. And I'm proud to say that since 2017, in this past January, the NYC ferries hit about 50 million riders, and that's a big deal. Landing in the Bronx, the Soundview landing in the Bronx, and we thought that landing wasn't going to get as much activity according to our research and our plans. However, that landing far exceeded our expectations, which led to a phase 2 of the ferries. Right now in the Bronx, they have about 2 ferry landings, and we're happy to say that ferries are connecting, delivers cost-effective and accessible transit to underserved communities. Next slide, Megan. And how do we, in order for us to actually keep the ferries going, we had to build a home port. I built the home port. Everything happened all in 1 year. This is the picture you see here. The 2 pictures on the right is the Brooklyn Navy Yard on the East River. We had a mandate to not only deliver the ferry service in 2017, but when you have 24 ferries, you have to actually fuel them and maintain them. So you're seeing the Pier C at the Brooklyn Navy Yard. So what we did, and actually, we have to do it in such a sustainable way. So we had to find an old dilapidated pier, which was at the Navy Yard, because we can't just go ahead and put a new pier into the waterways. We have something called mitigation. So we had to find a pier that was already there, so this way we wouldn't have to either find someplace else to take out an old ferry dock to put a new one in. So we put it right in the old footprint of an existing pier that was damaged during Sandy. So we demoed. We actually bought the pipe piles, 36-inch diameter piles from Texas. We barged them up, and we delivered a precast concrete pier, which has about 40,000 gallons of fuel to fuel the ferries. So, so lots of things, lots of moving parts on the on the waterways. Thank you, Megan. And next slide. And here is the Manhattan Cruise Terminal. One of the things I did not know driving past the Manhattan Cruise Terminal, most days on the West Side Highway, is that actually every year those piers were built on old wooden piles. That's before steel pipe piles, and the marine borers, worms, actually eat those piles. And so every day, or most at least 2 cycles a year, we have underwater divers. Actually, they call them posting the piles, cutting out the old piece of pile and putting in a new piece. And that goes on almost every year, just to keep the facility going and maintain I think at this point it's probably close to a 90-year facility, 1930. So yes, there you go. Over 1 million passengers annually, 200 plus cruise ships in a peak year. Is a major economic driver in the city. We estimated at 500 million in economic impact, supports 3,000 jobs. And as I said earlier, we spend about $8 to $10 million at a time during my tenure in annual dredging twice a year, and actually doing pile repairs on that pier. Thank you, Megan. Next slide. And after I left the New York City Economic Development Corporation, I went up to the Hunts Point Food Distribution Hub, which was one of my assets during my time at the EDC. And I went from the public side of New York City Economic Development Corporation to working for a board on the private side. I was a chief executive officer for the Hunts Point Produce Market, the largest produce-only market. We normally say the world, so we'll leave it at that, but it's definitely the largest market in the nation. The peninsula itself, Hunts Point Food Distribution, has about 329 acres. It supports 8,500 workers, 15,000 trucks daily, 4.5 billion pounds of food passed through it annually, and serves about 22 million people within a 50-mile radius in New York City. Part of my time as the chief executive officer for the Hunts Point Produce Market, I raised over $400 million to potentially build a new facility. One of the things with the infrastructure within any major city, it's aging, and there's tons of work there to be done. So we're looking to bring 2,000 jobs with that investment, new jobs with that investment to the Bronx. And as you can see around that distribution hub, you see waterways. And also one of the things, and you asked Michael earlier, and Michael mentioned it about the M95, the waterway coming up. The city also launched a Blue Highways program with the New York City DOT, and Megan, that will be on the next slide. Actually, yep, here we are. So logistics, the Blue Highways, it's a new action plan. It's actually started, I would say, probably over 10 years ago when it was a part of my portfolio while I was at the city. But now they finally launched it. And the goal of the Blue Highways is to, number one, take trucks off the road and put them on shipping. I heard a question earlier about truck to rail. So there's actually, within my portfolio at the city, there is a rail yard that actually takes rail on barges over to Brooklyn, and then the rail cars come off the barges and actually go and collect metal scraps at the Sims Metal Yard in South Brooklyn. So there's tons of activity just around the waterway. So the Blue Highways plan plans to bring, over 117,000. We're talking about jobs within by 2035. So those jobs include port operations, shipbuilding, logistics, last mile delivery. You heard Nate and Michael talk a bit about those. So it's a billion dollar industry on the waterfront, and the barriers to entry are low, and I would say that's a good place to be. Thank you, Megan. And next slide. And here's the future careers. I wanted to just, you have government, economic development, where I started, 10, 12 years ago. I knew nothing about the waterfront. I'm an upland engineer, but if you could do it upland, you could do it on the water. The waterfront fuels coastal and waterfront engineers, marine construction specialists, environmental resilience professionals, port and marine operations. You hear Nate could drive any ship in the world. I think one of the coolest things I've been on was one of those big cruise ships, Nate. But and construction management and tourism. So among the many things, as you could see, as I said earlier, I had a traditional and somewhat non-traditional path to the waterfront. From a traditional engineer to a director of construction to a CEO, and now I'm so fortunate to be on the Mercy Board of Trustees. And Megan, thank you so much for even enlightening me that there's this program here. So I'm just happy to take questions and open it up.
Thank you so much. Definitely learning a lot about the waterfront, even in my area. Do we have any questions for Phillip? I'm hearing a lot of from all of our presenters so far about non-traditional paths and kind of taking leaps and thinking about just being persistent, it sounds like. So one question we have is, any recommended majors for this career path?
So recommend majors. So Megan and I, we met about 2 weeks ago, and we've been talking about majors, folks taking a non-traditional path. Listen, I would say lead with your passion. Think about something that aligns with you, whether it's business. In my case, my first love, I actually probably wouldn't have made it to the water unless I became an engineer. I actually wanted to be an airplane pilot. So when I hear Nate talk about driving a boat, I think about flying an airplane, but maybe on an airplane carrier, so forth. But no, to answer your direct question, listen, you could be a business major, you could be a marine biologist, you could be an engineer. You could be, there's so many different paths, but I could tell you about my path. I chose mechanical engineer, similar to Michael. Michael is a mechanical engineer, and who did some nuclear. Michael does some good stuff, man. 22 years running a 20,000 megawatt. Boy, so as you can see, there's it's so many different ways. So I picked mechanical engineer because it was the broadest discipline, and which would allow me to do quite a bit of things. I never thought I would be on the waterfront or doing work on the waterfront. I just thought maybe I would be, maybe for Ford Motor Plant or something, or never thought I would ended up in construction, but here I am. So you could, so engineering is a straight path. If you're on the business side, that's a straight path as well. If you're in the marine biologist or anything on the waterfront, that's a straight path. Or similar to, as Nate said and Michael said, it's just ask, just come out and ask. You see it on this picture, you see a diver, underwater diver. I won't tell you, listen, they make a lot of money doing that, and they work all year round.
Phil, I don't often bring this up, but Megan, since you asked about what kind of degree programs, there's even a need for attorneys to review business contracts between entities, real estate attorneys to do things along the waterfront. Admiralty law is its own special brand of legal expertise that really is needed. The concentration that the things you learn about how the seas are controlled and managed between different countries, even just a huge part of it. So for anybody out there that's thinking, well, maybe someday I want to be a lawyer, there's a place for you in the maritime world.
I think what I'm hearing is there's a place for everyone. Like it sounds like,
Everyone.
whether you want to work in a more hands-on kind of way. I think Nate was talking about, and Mike, you too, like about we need construction and we need electricians and technologists, and then engineers and whether it's a nuclear engineer or mechanical engineer or a business person or an attorney. So I think you got to follow your passion, right? And what interests you for all of that. So I want to make sure we get to Ximena. Ximena is the head of sustainability at
Yeah, hi
Wasteline
everyone.
Solutions. Hello.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I am Ximena. I am head of sustainability at Wasteline Solutions, and I'm very happy to be here. Well, just to like give you the context of it, what we do at Wasteline Solutions, very simply said, is we take all waste from either cruise ships, houses, commercial facilities, and we transform this waste into something valuable, or if not, like we responsibly handle it. And yeah, next slide. So before jumping in on what I do as a head of sustainability, I wanted to ask if somebody here knows what sustainability means, because I know it's like out there and we use it so much. So maybe someone knows what this word means.
Anyone want to throw out answers? Feel free. I think we have an answer in the chat, Ximena.
Yeah. Extracting something long term without harming the environment or depleting the resource. Yes, it has to do with that. So next slide. Thank you, Megan. So like the simplest way to see sustainability and like the easiest definition of it is to meet today's needs without compromising the needs of future generations. So yeah, if we use today resources, we need to make sure that like future generations still have the same resources to keep their needs fulfilled. So So in order to like achieve this, what we need to do is like to always think in 3 dimensions. So every strategy or every project that can be done should always consider like the environment, the community you're at, and also that it's like economically viable. And yeah, next slide. So now I'm gonna go like through what I actually do as a head of sustainability, like with this context. Or like what you should be doing is as a head of sustainability is to like first understand like the community you're at and the ecosystems you are uh, making your operations with. Like you need to have a system thinking and understand that like every action impacts many, like the whole system. So first you gotta understand like what are you impacting from this system, and then you design or implement strategies aligned with the business goals, as we saw like before, like a 3 dimensional strategy. And we also need to like build strategic partnerships, because something that is really important to understand in a sustainability aspect is that nothing can be achieved in isolation, because in the end like we're all in this world, and if you have this systemic thinking, you understand that we all need to like put our grain of salt there. And the last thing it's important to do is like to track and measure what you're doing, and also report on it as like your sustainability strategy. And like on my day to day, or like this landed to like Wasteline Solutions, what we do is prevent ocean pollution And this is we do this by supporting beach cleanups and complying with all regulations, all environmental regulations of how to handle the waste we manage to protect the ecosystems. We also improve waste management. So we develop reports. I develop reports and scorecards in collaboration with the cruise lines. So we improve the circular strategy. So like in a monthly basis, we see like how much waste was generated, how much of that was we were able to recycle, what happened with like, for example, yeah, we just like try to develop better ways to reduce the waste or generate like a circular economy, which is the next thing, like creating circular economy solutions. So to transform waste into value, like right now we are, for example, composting coffee grounds. So taking all the coffee that it's being used in cruise lines and turning it into compost that then turns into fertile earth, fertile soil. Then we also, for example, repurpose soap. So all the soap that it's extra in a cruise line, we segregate it and we have a partnership with a company that repurpose it, and then people in India can have new soaps out of this soap. And we also enable donations to be done. So like a lot of furniture comes down from cruises and it's in a good shape. So we have a network of other companies or communities that will be that can be used that can use this furniture. So we also do that, and also we do recycling and waste to energy. And as I said before, we have a lot of partnerships and collaborations to discover new solutions. We're always like trying to develop new solutions, new ways, find different recyclers, find like this is moving all the time. So we're always like finding new stuff to to innovate with the waste that we're generating. And that's it. Thank you. And feel free to ask any question.
Thank you. Super interesting. Would you mind telling us a little bit about your career path since we heard from the other speakers?
Sure, yeah. Well, I'm Mexican. I studied sustainable development engineering in Mexico City. And after um, maybe 4 years of working around companies, I pursued a master's degree, a master in science degree in Germany, in Hamburg, and it was called Integrated Climate System Sciences. So this was like climate change in all its perspectives, like biogeochemistry, like target to climate change, and then like physically what's happening in the world, and also like socio-economically. And there I worked as a student, like I had a student job in Hapag-Lloyd, which is like a huge container shipping company. And afterwards, I came back to Mexico and I started working in a Mexican company called um, MPS, Maritime Procurement Solutions, where I started handling, well, they do the same, but in Mexican ports as Wasteline Solutions. And afterwards, I joined Wasteline Solutions in Florida.
Thank you. That's great. We have a question from one of our student groups. Is this a job or a career that you travel around to manage this, or do you stay based in one location?
I do travel, like I love it because, for example, when I was working at MPS, we did beach cleanups like in the different ports in Mexico. So I went to several of them. And there's also like huge conferences that you want to join and like participate with all the people in the industry. And this happens in Miami or in Dominican Republic. And yeah, yeah, there's traveling opportunities in the career.
Great, thank you. Another question we have is which cruise companies are employing your services and how much food waste is being produced?
Well, I think all cruise lines are employing people that are dedicated to sustainability because like every cruise line has their department of sustainability and their like sustainability report and strategy and like every year they're having goals that they have to well they aiming to attain. So I think like every cruise line will like have a job opportunities for someone in sustainability and food waste. Well, I don't have like the actual number right now, but it's been like a part of like sustainable of the strategies that cruise lines are doing right now. It's about food waste, and like throughout the years, they've been doing less food waste as before, but yeah, there's still some food waste.
Makes sense. Thank you.
De nada.
I want to see if there are any questions for any of our speakers that might have come out. I see one regarding worm cordage, for example, what sort of recycling and reusing is used?
Regarding what?
Worm, do you mean worm compost? I'm not sure. Oh, worn cordage. Now I read it. Sorry.
Warm cordage.
So do you mean like the lines, William? You can unmute if you want.
Yeah, I was referencing like the lines and things that are used on, cruise ships and stuff like that. Because
Oh, like the ropes and things. The ropes, most of them are made of plastic. Like it has like different types of plastic in it. So if we manage to get the logistics right, what you do is like to crush it and like turn it back into plastic pellets and then make like another type of plastic product.
And William, there's a few small nonprofits that's all they do around the country. So they focus with like commercial fishermen, and they'll take their full fishing nets because fishing nets are also made
Mm.
of that same cordage and plastic, as well as the big lines of different parts. Normally, it doesn't. The quality is degraded because they've been in the sunshine, and so they're down to reusable. Like clothing has been one. So like a company called Grunnens that makes the outerwear that we use for commercial fishing has a line of clothing that is made from the recycled fish uh, nets and lines and stuff put back together. So that's one of the interesting ways of trying to upcycle and keep things through the cycle for stuff that's pretty hard to get rid of. It's pretty cool.
There are a few companies out there that make like bags, like backpacks and things like that out of recycled fishing nets and lines as well. Um, I have a question for any of you. Can you talk a little bit about how technology has shifted your industry in recent years? So how are we capitalizing on newer technologies?
No, I'll take a shot at that. And I think about the technology that Nate's using. We use similar we would say construction management software. We switched years ago from just a simple, paper, paper and pen. Some still do, to an integrated system that sometimes number one manages projects, watch schedules, track the dollars, and sometimes those software then integrate with the back end accounting. As Michael said earlier, you're always going to need someone on the legal side, and that sometimes ties into some sort of a legal specification, which then gets pulled. So technology has been helpful. AI has been something that our industry is leaning into these days. I know it's I know I see it as a tool. AI, it's just a quick office assistant that really drills down things. At least that's how I view it. So technology is big. Technology allows us to be more efficient. I look at, for instance, when we dredge, I heard what Nate said, you have to drop a rope to figure out the water depth. Now, you have, boats with sonar that actually just sit in that Manhattan cruise terminal. And, as we dredge, they'll tell us exactly, what depths we've reached. So that's a big key. The phone is when I started, and it's in the early 2000s, we were just using dial phones. Now it's full blown, a computer in your pocket. So I tell you a story. I remember the first time I got a BlackBerry. I think it was probably, I can't remember what year it was, somewhere in the early 2000s. And I wanted the BlackBerry, and I said, "Oh my goodness, this is gonna be the coolest thing. I got a BlackBerry." And then once I got the BlackBerry, I realized, I was like, "Oh no, that means they want me to answer emails every single minute of the day, through midnight." And flash forward now, it's we're always on. So technology has been big, and I'm curious to see, what's going to happen. But the beautiful thing about technology, I know folks say, there's AI, and yes, it's a tool, but there's certain things, and I know Nate and Michael and Ximena could say it, is like there's certain things you still need. You still need a captain to drive that boat. At least now, anyway. You still need deckhands. You still need longshoremen. So
Yeah, Phil, I would say we're a ways from eliminating people from the process, but
yes.
shippers are using the advancement of platforms like Starlink, so they can constantly stream data from their power systems on their ships. They
Mm,
can sit in an office and calculate when the hull of a ship needs to be cleaned because the fouling's reached a point where it's starting to impede efficiency and affect the shipper's operations. There's a lot of people developing autonomous ships for different purposes, including research vessels that let us get data about the environment without having to put people at risk by going out to sea. And those autonomous vehicles can be out there in all times of weather without the risk to the crew. So even the dredging example you gave, I was out on a dredger in New Haven Harbor last October, and we are about one step away from the person operating the dredge bucket from being able to be in a trailer on the shore and not sitting over the barge itself. As he's driving everything off of a computer screen that tells him how deep the bucket went down and how much material he picked up, and where we put that material. When you discharge it into open water, it's done by cell phone transmittal, and you can't open the doors on a dredge scow until you're within the boundaries of the permitted disposal site. So
mm.
there's a lot of technology in play, and there's a lot more that can be done to continue to improve and invest in the maritime world.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I would also definitely say that like in sustainability, there's always like technology is super important because we keep finding out like new problems and we need to solve them. And I think like technology plays a big role on that. We can see that like on renewable energy, like now we can like take energy from the sun, from the wind, and that's all technology.
Absolutely. Well, it is about that time. Thank you all so much. It was so interesting to hear all these different perspectives and views and entry points for the maritime industry, which is super broad and blue economy. So we really appreciate you all sharing your expertise and sharing your time, especially with everyone, but especially our students today. So thank you. Thank you. Everybody enjoy your weekend. Thanks to all of our attendees for coming, especially our students. I see a couple emails already saying that they loved it and learned a lot. So we appreciate all of you. Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thanks.